Can you tell me a little bit about the Illumination Fund?
Sure, it's actually quite new. It's about 3 years old, founded by Laurie Tisch, who's been a lifetime philanthropist in New York and but as an individual. And she created the foundation as a way to really catalyze and strategize and create a coherent vision around her philanthropy.
Are there specific causes that you seek out?
Yes, to some extent, but it's more around the philosophy and approach and value system, looking at access and opportunity across a range of issue areas. So we do some work in food and nutrition, we do some work in education and in culture, and in public service. But those aren't, it's not the issue area for the issue's sake, but it's really looking at the common strands across the spectrum.
Can you tell me a little bit about one of the programs that your organization has funded that you're particularly proud of?
Sure. One that's very exciting, it's a program called New York City Green Cards. And what it is essentially is a program to bring mobile fruit and vegetable vendors to what are called food deserts, low-income areas where there's often insufficient availability of fresh foods. And what correlates to that is diabetes rates, obesity rates, and heart disease. This disproportionately affects low-income and minority communities. So the program is working with the city to actually create sort of a licensing structure to enable vendors to go to specific targeted areas where this is an underlying significant community problem. What's really exciting is that it's scaled very quickly. Now there are 450 independent businesses citywide, these vendors. 700 jobs have been created. And it's a model then now that even though an environment, say, in other cities may differ vastly, we're already getting lots of inquiries from folks in Atlanta and Philadelphia and Chicago and Detroit around what are some of the learnings here, not take the program and transplant it, but what are some of the learnings?
What do you think is the key to the success of that scaled effort?
It's been a learning process. I think that it was brand new venture. I mean, it's ironic thinking about it in the context of scale and what's scale ready, because there's not yet an evidence base. It's not at a point where you can say, this works, this affects diabetes rates and heart disease, and therefore it should be scaled in this way. There is a bit of a leap of faith involved, but to the point that came up in the session today, you have to look at proxies for success and for evidence. And so while we're not able to measure diabetes and heart disease in this context in a 3-year program, we are able to look at if there are 450 vendors on the street every day in areas where otherwise there are very few options, then people are, and they're making a profit, then people are buying and eating more fresh fruits and vegetables than they had. So you look at that as a proxy to get you to the point of impact. And then if that is succeeding, then you can start to scale to other businesses, to other cities, et cetera.
Very good. And what are you hoping to gain from the conference?
I'm hoping to gain a broader perspective on the concept of scale, because I think the natural inclination people have is to think scale equals replication, and that's not necessarily the case. There are lots of ways to think about scale, and it may be sort of a permeating a particular geography, or it may be it might be replicating an organization or replicating a way of thinking. In the case of the green cards, it's looking at what is the goal. It's not to put vendors out there, it's to increase the availability of fresh produce. And so I think this has been helpful in terms of thinking more broadly around what are you trying to achieve, and at what level, and how do you get there, and what is that process. They made someone this morning, and frankly I don't remember who it was, made a really good point about Linda Gibbs, who's a deputy mayor here in New York City, that when she, and heads all the social services essentially, when she asked her staff, what is success for us with homeless population, and they said, well, to house more people. And she said, no, it's to decrease homelessness. And it was her vision around saying, what are we trying to achieve that is the end point that we can work towards, rather than let's just generate programs and generate activity and generate facilities and build more shelters. And I think that this has been helpful in terms of putting that in context and thinking about how do you step back and look at the goals, and then how do you get there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for stopping and talking to us.
Terrific. Thank you.